Have you ever wondered why some people get more sick with COVID than others? Or why some people get sick all the time and some people seem to never get sick at all? One answer to this question can be traced back to two feuding scientists back in the 1800s. Many people are familiar with the scientist Louis Pasteur, who is heralded as one of the first champions of germ theory and is credited with discovering that microorganisms cause disease. But fewer people know of the scientist Pierre Béchamp. Pierre Béchamp was a contemporary of Louis Pasteur, but he had a very different take on what causes disease, pioneering a concept called terrain theory. Béchamp claimed that what determines if someone gets sick is the terrain, or the internal environment of the body, and that microbes are essentially harmless if someone has an adequate internal terrain. Béchamp acknowledged the existence of microorganisms but believed that they were produced as a result of disease, rather than causing it. Béchamp's theory is often referred to as terrain theory, and was mostly set aside as scientific advances provided more proof for Pasteur's germ theory. Given the extensive scientific proof for germ theory, Béchamp's proposition might sound outrageous. However, the scientist was right in a couple of key ways. For one, he claimed that microorganisms are not inherently harmful or causative of disease, and the recent discovery and characterization of the human microbiome is a prime example of how microorganisms can exist within the body without causing harm or disease and even have beneficial effects. Béchamp was also right that the environment of a person's body can impact whether or not they get sick and how sick they get. Most people probably know that it's important to follow best hygiene practices like washing your hands frequently, and not touching your eyes, nose, mouth, or face with unwashed hands. Emerging research is also revealing one factor that may be more important than people realize, specifically, vitamin D levels. Vitamin D is an incredibly important vitamin, which is actually more like a hormone than a vitamin in terms of its structure and function. Unfortunately, about 70% of the US population is vitamin D insufficient. Unlike other hormones, no gland in the body makes vitamin D, so it has to be made by the skin through absorption of UVB rays from the sun. But getting enough vitamin D from sun exposure alone is a tall order. Many people live in an area where there simply isn't enough sunlight to get sufficient vitamin D, and even people who live in sunny areas like Arizona are likely to avoid excessive time in the sun to avoid heatstroke. Furthermore, a recent study in Chicago found that African Americans needed to spend 6 times as long in the sun as Caucasian counterparts to produce equal amounts of vitamin D. While it might be a challenge to get enough, emerging research is making it clear that vitamin D is extremely important for immunity. One study looked at 190,000 patients and found a strong association between vitamin D deficiency and COVID-19 positivity, even after controlling for factors such as age, gender, latitude, and race. Another study found that patients with lower vitamin D levels are more likely to have severe illness, need ventilation, and even die from COVID-19. And even before COVID, supplementation with vitamin D was found to reduce acute chest infections by 50%. One suspected reason for these associations is that vitamin D can decrease inflammatory cytokines in the lungs. Another study showed that vitamin D regulates the critical ACE2 receptor system when ACE2 levels have decreased, such as in COVID infection, preventing further lung injury. Fortunately, vitamin D is the least toxic fat-soluble vitamin, meaning that vitamin D supplementation can be both effective and low risk for improving immunity. But, it can be hard to say how much vitamin D you should supplement with to improve your immunity, because target concentrations of vitamin D are based on its role in bone density, not in immune function. 4,000 IUs per day is the upper limit recommended for patients who have sufficient vitamin D and are trying to maintain their levels, but taking more temporarily may be necessary to correct an insufficiency. The correct amount can depend on your age, the amount of melanin in your skin, the time of year, and the climate. The best solution is to get your vitamin D levels tested and use supplementation to reach a desired level. Research suggests that having serum levels above 50 nanograms per milliliter is best for promoting immunity. All in all, the evidence connecting vitamin D to immunity suggests that maybe both Pasteur and Béchamp's ideas can be useful to us today. While we do know that microbes can cause many diseases, it may be worth our while to also invest in improving our internal terrain to maximize our chances of living healthy lives.